So Doug Walker, aka Nostalgia Critic, has recently began another yearly dose of what he calls Disneycember, where he dedicates every day of the month of December to talking about a lot of things Disney. You know, anything that's owned by Disney, anything created by Disney, associated with Disney, you get the point. And recently, he talked about Disney's live-action adaptation of Underdog. Now, I believe Doug did a review as the Nostalgia Critic on Underdog several years back. And pretty much his short Disneycember editorial on it that he did recently, I think yesterday or a couple days ago, pretty much stands by what he said in that review. And it's a review that I think all of us, whether we like Doug or we don't like Doug, can agree upon is fact. And that is, Disney's live-action adaptation of Underdog was not the best idea for a movie. Because all it really is, you know, the traditional boy and a dog movie. That's it. A boy and his dog movie, you know, pretty much. The only change is it's loosely, and I mean very loosely, based on a classic 1960s show called Underdog. Now, for me, I've always been a fan of the classic show. In fact, I have two collectibles of Underdog and Sweet Polly Purebred still in the box in my closet. You know, and they had released, and ironically, they had released this in time for the movie to kind of tie in with the film. And can you imagine how fans must have felt that grew up on the original Underdog, that heard about this film, saw what it was going to be? Can you imagine how they, or even the new generation of fans of Underdog, you know, must have been feeling when they saw this merchandise based on the classic 1960s cartoon, you know, coming out to tie in with this live-action film? Can you imagine the reaction of, wait a minute, this is supposed to be one and the same? Oh, that don't make sense. That don't make sense. That don't work. That don't work. So basically what happened? Because of the fact that they tried to sell merchandise based on the same IP in which the movie was adapted from, or very loosely adapted from, the movie failed. They failed because if you're going to come out and you're going to make an adaptation of something like Underdog, you know, you're going to make that movie announcement that, hey, this is happening, a lot of people would expect an animated film. You know, straight up an animated film. Or maybe what we see nowadays, to where it's live action, but it's also a mixture of animation. You know, that's what they would have expected. But instead, what they ended up getting was something that was only related and adapted in title, and that's it. Nothing else. It was more along the lines of, as I said, a boy and his dog film. That's what it was. Now, here's the thing. Could I see another attempt at an Underdog movie being made? Absolutely. Absolutely. I could see another adaptation being made. But I see it this time being done the right way. You see, Universal has the rights to a lot of classic media. And one of those rights that they have to classic media is Underdog, I believe, because classic media was always associated with it when it would be distributed on home video. So Universal, as far as I know, alongside Rankin Bass and all of them, do own the rights, as far as I know, to the actual Underdog cartoon. So I don't know if Disney still owns the movie rights. I don't think they do. And even so, I think the animation movie rights could still be utilized by Universal or whoever's got them. And nowadays, when you look at the fact that, you know, Warner Animation Group, Sony's Animation, you know, and many others are starting to up their A game in animated films for theatrical release, I could see Universal or Dreamworks or whoever owns it, one of the two I think, stepping up and saying, hey, you remember that Underdog film that Disney tried to do based on the classic IP, which failed? The classic IP that we have the rights to? Why don't we show them how it's done, and let's do a legit animated film. And I could see that. I can see them doing that. I can see Universal doing that. I can see maybe them giving the rights to Illumination to do it. You know, whatever the case is, I could see one of those two, if not three studios actually doing an animated film, a legit animated film on Underdog. And I could see them basing it in the world of the actual animated series. I can actually see that. Now you might say, well, why would they want to attempt that? Why would they want to try to do that? Well, I want you to think about this. Look at Warner Animation Group. Warner Animation Group is trying to get their foot in the door with movies like Scoob, League of Super Pets, and very soon in the future, The Metal Men. And Warner Animation Group, even before that, kind of proved that they can be successful. Remember, they did the Lego movie, they did the Lego Batman movie, and Lego Movie 2. So they've had some hits even prior to that. And Scoob, Scoob was kind of a semi-mixture hit, if you will. Like, it was a hit, but it wasn't the hit that Warner's was hoping for because of the pandemic. I think if nothing had happened, you know, if the pandemic had not come to be and the movie was released in theaters, I think Scoob would have probably been a modern success. That's my opinion. But when I look at what Warner Animation Group has done with them, what they're planning to do with the League of Super Pets, you know, what they're planning to do with Metal Men, you know, and then I look at what Sony's doing with, you know, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and then that first look we got with Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse Part 1. You know, to me, the timing couldn't be perfect. And then you're looking at what Illumination is doing, you know, with with the Sing movies and other movies they've done prior. The timing couldn't be perfect. Dreamworks, same thing. Dreamworks and Illumination, I think they're under the same banner. The timing couldn't be better. The timing couldn't be better. And I honestly believe that if Universal decides on their own or through Dreamworks or Illumination to say, hey, we're going to do an animated film, we're going to do a legit send-up animated film based on the original animated series of the Underdog franchise, of the Underdog IP, I can see it happening. I can see them looking at what Warner was doing, and they're going to be like, you know what? Let's try something superhero-wise as well, and they'll do it. They will do it. Again, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody, if not already, has come out and said, you know that, or suggested the fact of, hey, you know that Underdog movie that Disney did where they tried to make their own adaptation, a very loose adaptation of the classic, you know, animated series, you know, it's a live action film, but it's actually just a boy and his dog film with the Underdog name on it, and how that pretty much caused the movie to bomb because of, you know, the fact that they were selling merchandise based on the original series to tie in with it, and that confused people. Well, why don't we try to do one better? Why don't we basically try to show them how a legit Underdog movie or movie based on the Underdog franchise can be done, and let's show them how it can be done through animation. And I think that's probably what well, I wouldn't say it happened in that manner, but I would not be surprised if somebody made that suggestion of, hey, let's try to do our own take on Underdog. And honestly, I would love to see it. I would love to see it. And you know what? You can bring back the same voice actors from the live action film to voice the characters if you wanted to do that. You can bring them back. You can bring them back and say, hey, look, we think you did a decent job in the Underdog live action film that Disney did, but we also believe you can do an even better job with our adaptation, because ours is going to be true to the original source material and not some very loose adaptation that's basically a boy and his dog film in disguise. And that's it. That's all they have to do. Now, they don't have to necessarily bring back, the original voice cast. They can actually bring in new people, which would be great. I mean, heck, can you imagine Zendaya as Sweet Polly Purebred? Whoo! Sign me up. Sign me up for Zendaya on that one. Can you imagine her there? And I would not be surprised. Here's the thing. He basically, from a voice perspective, he is obviously such a hot commodity from a voice perspective. I wouldn't be surprised if they made the announcement of doing an Underdog animated film, that whoever does it, whether it's Universal, Illumination, or Dreamworks, that they come out and say, "Hey, we got Chris Pratt to voice Shoeshine / Underdog." I wouldn't be surprised. But honestly, if I'm going to bring in someone like Chris Pratt to voice a character in an Underdog animated film, I have to have him be either that gangster character or that doctor character. It's got to be either one of them. It's got to be either one of them, because I can tell you right now that you bring him in and you have him be the voice of Shoeshine, of Shoeshine Underdog, if you will, and pretty much people are going to get on you like, blank on rice, if you know what I mean, because of the fact that, it's one thing to have Chris voice Mario in the Super Mario Bros. Movie. It's another to have him voice Garfield in an upcoming Garfield movie. But to have him voice Shoeshine Underdog, yeah, people will be like, yeah, that's going a little too far. And it's not necessarily, Shoeshine or Underdog. It could be any, tutorial character, that's the lead character of a franchise, that if you bring in Chris and he voices that character, people are going to say, yeah, that's a little too much. So I could see him being brought in to voice Shoeshine Underdog, but I can also see him being brought in to be that gangster character, or that doctor character, the evil doctor character. So I could see one of those possible scenarios. But again, I'd rather have him be one of the villains instead of straight up be Shoeshine Underdog, if you know what I mean. Because honestly, if I'm going to bring in Zendaya to voice Sweet Polly Purebred, because she's been knocking it out of the park as Mary Jane, and as well as in some of the other roles she gets as well. I think she knocked it. I think honestly she did a great job as Lola Bunny. Let's be honest. I mean, if there's anybody, that, let's say, Paramount wanted to bring in to voice Sally. To voice Sally, if they ever decided, hey, you know what? In the third or fourth Sonic movie, let's bring in Princess Sally. I would not be against Zendaya being the voice, because a lot of people have said that the way she voiced Lola felt like it was still Cat Sushi. Still felt like it was Kath Sushi still that was voicing her. Very identical. So I wouldn't be against Zendaya being Sally's voice in an upcoming Sonic project, nor would I be against her being Sweet Polly Purebred. Be honest with you. But with that being said, who should voice Shoeshine Underdog if, let's say, Chris Pratt, if he gets into the film, voices, let's say, one of the villains? Well, I'll be honest with you. I think the person that should voice him is the person that's working with Zendaya right now. And that person is Tom Holland. I think Tom Holland would be a great Shoeshine Underdog voice actor. I really do. I mean, the fact that, look how well he acts as, not as Peter Parker, Spider-Man. Look how well he acted, decently, in Spies in Disguise. The movie with Will Smith. Look at the fact that he's being signed on to, revise or reprise his role as Frank Sinatra biopic based on his life, if you will. I think it's Frank Sinatra. Based on his life, if you know what I mean. So, not Sinatra, but Fred Astaire. Fred Astaire is what I'm trying to say. He's being brought in to reprise his role from the Broadway musical. So, to me, I can't think of anybody better than Tom Holland and Zendaya, who are working great together in the Spider-Man films, to be the voices of Sweet Polly Purebred and Shoeshine Underdog. Again, like I said, you can bring Chris Pratt in, but I think he needs to voice one of the villains and not the hero. That's just my opinion. But to me, I really think basically, Tom Holland and Zendaya are the perfect fit, in my opinion. They really are. And, to me, if I was to choose what studio I think should be the ones to help distribute the film or have their name, as the ones behind the film to basically be distributed into theaters, out of the three, I think you got to go with Dream. I think honestly, you got to go with Illumination. I think Illumination is owned by Universal and Comcast, because Comcast is part of NBC Universal and all that. So yeah, to me, Illumination is the best option. I mean, you could go with Dreamworks, which I wouldn't be against, since they are part of Universal as well. But I have to say Illumination. To me, right now, with the role they are on, would be the perfect fit. So I can see Illumination through Universal being the ones that distribute an animated adaptation of Underdog based on the actual franchise, since I think Universal, as we speak, owns the IP currently. I'm not really sure. But to me, that is probably the best choice. That, to me, is the best choice to go with. But what do you guys think? What are your thoughts on the fact that if we were to get an animated adaptation of the Underdog franchise back on the big screen, who do you think should distribute it? Do you think it should be Dreamworks, Universal straight up, or Illumination? And who do you think should voice the characters? Again, to me, Tom Holland and Zendaya, to me, would be the perfect voices for Shoeshine, Underdog, and Sweet Polly Purebred, where I think Chris Pratt, if they want to bring him in, I think honestly would be the perfect fit for one of the villains. So I think those are the best voice choices, for characters in an animated adaptation. But overall, what are your thoughts on it? Do you think a studio should take another chance at doing an Underdog theatrical film, but this time do it right and do it in a way that's more traditional to the original franchise that it's based on, and that's do it through animation itself, as well as keep it in that same world aesthetic that the classic series was based in? How do you feel about that? Let me know down below in the comment section, as well as in the live chat during the premiere. Like the video. Check me out at my Teespring store, especially with Christmas on its way. Also, check me out at BW Rose's Discussions on all your favorite audio podcast locations except for Pandora. As well as if you're listening on Anchor.fm, listener support is open if you want to help me there. Also, check me out at BW Roses on VENMO. BW Roses on VENMO. Check me out there for content you can't get anywhere else. Also, check me out at patreon.com/bwroses to support me with the $1 or $3 tier, that is of your choosing. And also check me out at Venmo at Brian-Walmer-2. So until next time, guys, I will talk to y'all later. Take care. God bless. But give me your thoughts. And I'm out.